Today we're saying a very emotional goodbye to the W16, which we first saw right here in the Bugatti Veyron, a record setter for straight line speed. And then we saw it developed in this thing, the Chiron. Now this is the super sport, this is the road going version of it, but if you were to get it in the record setter, you could do over 300 miles an hour. And then we go into the coach built era. Cars based on the Chiron, but specially made with a unique design, like the Voiture Noire here, which I believe was an 8-figure car. And that brings us on to this thing. This is the Bugatti W16 Mistral, and it's officially the final road-going Bugatti to feature the W16 engine. And today, I've literally just got all the features. This is so off the cuff that I'm even doing the motoring journalist cliche of holding a notepad. So let's not waste time, let's get stuck into it. I'm Cam Tate, this is Piston Heads.
Remember to head over to pistonheads.com to research and buy your next car.
As the W16 Mistral is the last in its line, you can kind of look at the design as almost being a best-of highlights of some of the previous cars we've seen in the Chiron lineup. For instance, these now vertical headlights are very similar to what we had on the Voiture Noire, whereas on the Chiron, they were horizontal. This ultra-large grille right here as well, again, very similar to the Voiture Noire, but it's actually got a purpose. Not only does it make the car look a little more aggressive, but it actually feeds more air into the intercooler. Overall, though, we can clearly see that it's got a more focused, kind of pinched nose to it than what we saw on the standard Chiron, and personally, I think it looks really sleek. Another element that's purely for design, which I think is absolutely stunning, is this speedster look. So it's not a convertible, it is a speedster. You've got these ultra thin bezels around the windows, tiny A-pillars. It's still based on a Chiron. These A-pillars are from a Chiron. They're just really beautifully integrated. So it creates this look of what Bugatti calls the visor. On the Chiron, we had a massive air intake right here, but on the Mistral, it's tiny. And there's a reason for that. So instead of cooling the oil and engine in one inlet, they've actually split it. The vent that we have here is for cooling the oil reservoir, and up here is for the engine. It also means that when you're driving, you should hear more air being sucked into the engine. And the Chiron already has that quite distinctive whooshing sound of when you're full chat. It's just going to be amplified by this massive air intake right behind your head. I'll get onto the engine specs in just a minute, but at the back is arguably the most striking feature of the Mistral, because what Bugatti wanted to do is take those ultra cool X-shaped tail lights that we saw on the Bolide, the track-only car, and put it onto a road car. But that was really challenging, because when you have lights that are designed for road use, they need to meet all kinds of rules and regulations, but they've managed to pull it off. The only thing I'm not all that keen on, really, is the light-up Bugatti name at the back, but hey, I'm sure if you're rich enough to be able to buy one of these, you could always have that deleted if you want to. What Bugatti wanted to do is, because it's an ultra-sleek roadster, they didn't want to have a wing-up all the time, obstructing the clean silhouette of the Mistral. So instead, you have a larger diffuser to essentially take off some of the workload of the rear wing. Don't have any performance numbers yet, unfortunately, when it comes to downforce or drag, but hey, looks pretty cool, right? Naturally, the engine is the 8-litre W16 with 4 turbochargers, but interestingly, this is actually the unit out of the Super Sport, so we're actually producing 1,600 horsepower. Now, while in the Super Sport, as I mentioned earlier, if you do get the record-setting car, you can actually exceed over 300 miles an hour if you've got a long enough stretch of road and have the steel to do it. But in a roadster, it's a little more difficult, also because you're removing a key structural element of the car. So instead, Bugatti is aiming for a top speed of only 420 kilometers an hour, which roughly translates as 260. Pretty pedestrian. This is a statue of an elephant crafted by Rembrandt Bugatti and featured as the bonnet sculpture on the Type 41 Royale. Now, of course, with Bugatti, history is everything. And this element has a very special place in the interior. The only problem is, I can't actually show you the interior because, as you probably saw in the show car, they haven't built it yet. So instead, what they've done is they've set out some pictures, but also some of the materials that feature on the inside of the car, such as these lovely bits of leather. They've developed a new type of leather with a special brown with bits of grey in it. There's also a new yellow, which is apparently extremely yellow. It doesn't feature any other colours, just yellow, which in the person actually kind of looks a little bit on the weak side, but maybe in sunlight it would look really nice. Anyway, back to the elephant. We've got our first picture of it right here. So what they've done is they've actually put it in resin. So it almost looks like it's frozen in amber. It's also surrounded by this wooden gear lever. Now, we've asked Bugatti, what kind of wood is this? And they've said, well, any wood that you like. In fact, if you wanted it to be completely metal, you can have it completely metal. If you don't want Rembrandt Bugatti's elephant in there, you could put any other sculpture that you want. But this is just part of the show car, and I think it's quite a nice touch. Moving down, we've got more shots of the interior. It looks pretty much the same as the interior that we have in the Chiron. However, they have actually developed a new type of sports seat which should just hug you a little bit tighter and feel a bit nicer on a long cruise. Now, on to colours. This is really interesting. So we all know Bugatti for always featuring blue cars. There's a reason behind that, because when they were competing in the 1920s, 30s and 40s, they competed under country racing colours, hence why we have British racing green, Italy has racing red, and in France they have blue. But actually, Mr. Bugatti's favourite colours were yellow and black, and so they really want to go to town on that with the Mistral. Of course, if you don't like it, you can obviously get it in blue as well, or white, or really any colour that you want, because it's a Bugatti after all. It's all about you, providing you've got enough money. So there's my whistle-stop tour to the W16 Mistral. I know it's short on some of the finer details, but the car is still undergoing the homologation process, and naturally Bugatti doesn't want to tell me anything until everything has been all sealed and signed. But for now though, what they have said is what we can expect next. First of all, you'll still be able to buy a W16 after production of the Mistral closes with the Bolide track car. After that, for the road car stuff, it'll be a plug-in hybrid, not necessarily fully electric, despite tying up with Rimac. What that's based around though, it's just not telling me at the moment. So what I do know is if you want to be one of the final owners of a W16 road car, it's going to cost you 5 million euros. They're producing 99 examples, which seems quite high for a limited production car, plus one development car. And hopefully they're going to let me have a go in it. Please, Bugatti. So if you want to watch that, make sure you subscribe to Piston Heads, because if we're able to get behind the wheel, we'll have it right here.
If you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and hey, why not subscribe to the Piston Heads channel so that you're the first to know when a new video goes live.